So, Rob, thanks so much for taking the time and talking with us here on Boulder Channel 1.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I've been reading about you and read your website, studied up on a few things. But let's start from the beginning. So, who are you? How long, where did you come from when you came to Boulder? And basically, what's your story?
What's my story? Sounds good. So I came from Boulder from Gary, Indiana, which is basically south side of Chicago, kind of a rough town. Moved here in 1993. So I've been here for 33 years.
Yeah.
I founded Pro Peloton Bike Shop in 1997, and I had that until 2000. That was an amazing experience for me because I probably knew 50 people in Boulder at the time. And with my bike shop, I probably expanded that to about 500 people.
Oh, yeah.
Um, I learned how to deal with the businesses and all the permitting and all of that. I sold that and then I got into commercial real estate. And I had been doing some real estate back in Gary, Indiana, where I bought I was actually paying a speeding ticket at the Lake County Courthouse. I was in my mid 20s and I saw a house for sale and it was close to the beach, Lake Michigan. And it was about a third of what it should have been. And I inquired about it and they said it was a foreclosure. And it was close to my neighborhood. So I wound up buying it and I went to the house and I knocked on the door and a gentleman answered and I introduced myself and I said, "My name's Rob Kaplan. I just purchased your house. I have no intention of making you leave. You can stay here as long as you want." And I presented him with the rent and it was, I 99.9% sure it was less than the mortgage he was paying. And it was a sad story. His girlfriend was supposed to be paying the mortgage, and she had a cocaine habit. She was addicted, and it all went up her nose. But I walked into the house, and he said, "I suppose you want to see the house?" And I said, "That would be great." And literally on his television set, there was a gun bigger than any gun I've ever seen in my life. And I thought, damn it, this is how I go. My first real estate transaction. But
Wow.
we actually became like, kind of friends, very friendly, lived there for almost 18 months. And I did two more of those where I was able to keep people in the homes. But then I moved out here and after Pro Peloton, I got into commercial real estate because I like, I just feel comfortable in that world. And I did a couple apartment complexes in Denver. And I did a commercial medical building in Denver as well. I've since disposed of all of them. But
Good.
while I was doing that, I'm also a drummer and I was playing in a band up in Jamestown. And that was in 2002. And the Overland Fire happened. So I asked one of my clients at the bike shop how to volunteer. And he
Hmm.
said, you have to go to Front Range, get your EMT, and then you have to apply. It's a process. So I did that. And I saw him at the reservoir running one day, and his name's Rob as well. And I said, Rob, I got my EMT. I'm gonna um,
Whoa.
apply to Sunshine because I lived in Seven Hills. I was 2 miles up Sunshine Canyon. And he was at Boulder Rural Fire, which is in Gun Barrel. And he said, "No, you're going to apply with us." I said, "No, I want to be part of the community. I want to be in my fire district." And he said, "We are your fire district." And I said, "Wait a second, you passed two fire stations, 25 minutes to come to my house?" And he said, "Yeah." So one of the first things I did was email Sheriff Pelley, who was the sheriff at the time, and I asked him why this is happening. And he assured me in 5 years that all of this would be consolidated and that wouldn't be the case anymore. That would have been 2009. We're closer for sure. Um, but about a year later, after I was a volunteer at Boulder Rural, they had a hiring and I had no intention or expectation to get the job, but I wanted to go through it. I'm driven by curiosity, and I wanted to see what a professional hiring was like for a firefighter. And I got the job. I took the job. It's one of the best things that's ever happened to me. 18 years later, retired as a captain.
Were you paid at all during that?
Yeah, so I volunteered for 1 year and
Okay.
then 18 years was professional firefighter. So yeah, I
Wow.
started as a firefighter, promoted to engineer, and then up to captain.
Because it says you were a volunteer firefighter. I don't think it said you were a volunteer for 1 year and then paid for 18 when I was reading them.
Oh, where did you read that?
I don't know. Seems
Oh,
like that would whatever. It was in there in some of the stories.
yeah.
You might check it out and get them to get somebody to fix it.
Yeah, sure. That makes
Okay.
sense.
One other question too. So you had real estate holdings in Denver. Did you sell them all?
I did. I bought, so when I sold Pro Peloton,
Yeah.
I literally got on the internet and typed in how to buy an apartment complex.
Hmm.
And then I had realtors contacting me.
Oh, I see. Wait a minute. So I get it. So you're still, but you're still in the real estate or development business. Is that right? You work.
No, I'm not. And
Oh,
it was never development. I just bought
oh,
it as an investment.
okay. So what do you do? What it says here? I'm looking at one of these stories. It says, "Oh, I thought so you're not working for, you're not a real estate manager someplace, or are you?
No, not now. So I
What
I
what
bought
are
my
you? Are you
first one.
retired? Are you retired?
I'm retired.
Oh,
Yes.
you are retired.
I'm
Oh,
retired.
so you're
Yes.
an old person.
I'm an old person.
I'm just messing with you. Okay, listen, couple of other things here. Oh, the so you mentioned I was reading what you had to say about fire, and what do you want to see change for fire prevention in Boulder in this community?
Yeah. I mean, education is such a huge piece of this. I
Yeah.
would love to see that changed, in the way that we reach out to people.
Mhm.
Um, as there are a lot of things, Jan. One, I'll start with education, but then we'll go into the
Okay,
weeds of,
let's go right here. Marshall Fire happens.
yep.
Okay, the grass apparently wasn't. And just so you know, I mean, I've been a journalist my whole life. I've had Boulder Channel One. I was on television for a long time.
Jan,
And
I watched you when I moved here in 1993. I know
oh,
exactly who you are.
oh, you do? Okay, good. So when the fires happened in 2013, that burned all those homes up on Sugarloaf or up in the mountain, I called the chief. And I was saying, how did this happen? You explained it to me. The chief is now retired. And he explained to me how in Australia, there were these big wildland fires that would move at 40 miles an hour and throw embers that were the size of shingles. And he said, when you get in front of one of those, there's no stopping them. They will just, kill everything and burn everything. And then when the Marshall Fire happened, I had been researching it a little bit, and I wrote a piece that basically said we should have on open space, we should have giant irrigation sprinkler systems that are massive that you can turn on. And then I just read, okay, we put cows out there now, so in certain places to eat the grass to stop, these 10-foot walls of fire moving at 100 miles an hour. So anyways, that's been a big concern of mine. Everybody told me I was crazy. They, they said, well, you can't do that. And I'm like, why not? But go ahead.
Um, no, I mean mitigation. You're speaking of different mitigation and
Yeah.
suppression. That's a huge part of it. But let me start with education because I don't think people really understand it. I mean, I was on the Marshall Fire. I was off the day that it happened, but I was monitoring the radio, and I went in early and I got a crew together and we went. And if you had told me what I was about to see the day before, I don't know if I would have believed it. But as a captain, I'm sitting shotgun, and there were plastic garbage cans flying through the air, hitting my window, exploding. Everything was orange. We went straight to Tesla was our first assignment, and we had a 2,000 GPM gallon per minute deck gun, and that thing can shoot probably 50 yards with the right nozzle on it.
Hmm.
And we got to Tesla and we were probably, I don't know, maybe 100 feet away from it. And we couldn't even hit the building because the wind took all of that pressurized water and just
Wow.
90 degreed it. So we went, someplace else and we eventually ran out of water. The water system ran out of water.
Well, let me
And
ask you really quickly. Um,
yeah,
so what is it, to avoid a fire like that again? We need to keep the grass cut, in the wintertime and
yeah, I mean, there are a
here.
lot of things. There's something called a shaded fuel break.
Mhm.
You've got the built environment and then you've got the unbuilt environment. And what a shaded fuel break is, you don't clear cut all the trees. It used to be we had about 4 ponderosa per acre, and now we have about 40. And that's happened because we've built homes in the interface and we've stopped fire. And that's not healthy for the forest either. So it's very dense. There's a lot of, scrub oak and lodgepole pines in there. And
I covered the what you call it fire in Wyoming, the Yellowstone fire, and they were
mhm,
saying it then that we weren't doing fire mitigation. They said this was inevitable, and I covered the Black Tiger fire when it happened, and they were saying it right then, and this is 1989.
yeah. No, we've known this for a long time.
You know?
It's just a matter of getting the community to accept it. And I can give you an example of that. Bald Mountain up Sunshine Canyon, it's about 4 miles up Sunshine Canyon.
Yeah.
They were going to do a mitigation project there and they engaged the community. And the community was really upset that they were going to cut down trees. And they were showing them pictures from the early 1900s of what
Okay.
it actually looked like. And it was very sparse. They wound up doing the mitigation. And then when the Emerson Gulch fire happened, which went up and came down Sunshine Canyon,
Right.
that's where we stopped it, where that mitigation was. It works. It's critical.
Here's my question: are we going to have another Marshall Fire? Are we still set up for it right now?
We're in the 97th percentile of having another Marshall fire.
Do you
Yes.
know in let's see. Oh no, that was a flood. I'll take that back. I know we've had fires in the 1800s here, and if you look at pictures of the Front Range from the 1890s, it doesn't look anything like what it looks like.
No, no.
There were a lot of aspen trees up there.
Yeah. And it along the streams, the riparian plains, you would see cottonwood and
Mhm.
aspens, but this high desert and
What's
it's
so
natural to burn.
if you were, ruler, you know, what would you do? What would we do right now to take us out of that 97%
I
to
would start with some retroactive measures from the Wildland Urban Interface Code that they just passed.
Mhm.
Right now, it's only for new builds, which would take like 70 to 100 years for us to make a difference. Some of the things I know it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. Currently, we give $2,000, the city does, as a rebate, and the county gives 500. The Marshall Fire was $2 billion. I don't think we're putting nearly enough. A $500,000 a year is not enough to put towards fire mitigation. It needs to be significantly more. So what would I do? I would start with working with open space and mountain parks, and they are doing a good job
Mhm.
of doing fire mitigation there. As I said, clearing that understory and thinning out the forest. And then in the built environment, the 5 foot perimeter around homes makes a big difference. I would love to at least stop Home Depot or any of these nurseries from selling junipers for landscaping.
Universe.
They're very oily, they're highly flammable, and they create an ember cast.
When I bought my house, there were junipers here. I'm like, gee, why don't we just pour kerosene out there?
Yeah. And what they do is they get into so the second thing is
Mhm.
put eighth screening on all of the passive vents, which are underneath your soffits, on your attic vents,
Mhm.
because when these winds come, they will drive these embers into the vents and you have an attic fire and the house is burned from the inside out. It's usually the
Say
case.
say that again. Everything you just said. You do what now?
So if you have something burning, let's say
Yeah,
it's a juniper,
yeah.
and the wind is blowing it, it's doing what's called an ember cast. It's
Mhm.
throwing off a whole bunch of sparks, if you will, and they can travel for a mile or
Yeah.
more. And what was happening is they're being driven into the vents of the soffits and the attics of some of these homes. They would light the insulation or pine needles that are in
What's the
there.
sophist? What is that?
It's like where your roof is.
Yeah. Hmm.
You've got the fascia, and then underneath are your soffits.
Okay.
So, like, you may have some lighting underneath there, but you'll also see some vents that allow your attic to breathe.
Oh.
And that's where those embers are getting
Oh,
into.
you're kidding.
No. And so, like, one thing that people can do is, like, if they evacuate, close your windows, close your doors. Otherwise, embers are going to get in there and your house will burn from the inside out. Um,
Wow.
so
That,
again, going back to education is just number one for me. But I would do the 5 foot non-combustible space around the home. I would at least limb all of the conifers up 6 feet so that the ground fire doesn't come across, and that's a ladder fuel, and it would go up there and then create a
it
crown
seems
fire.
for this reason alone, you should be elected to city council. I mean, just probably save a lot of houses.
I mean, the truth is, Jan, like, I was approached by a city council person. They just asked me if I would be interested. And this was last year.
Yeah.
And then I started going to some city council meetings and sitting in, and I saw some of the questions that they were asking and were not asking
Yeah.
about fire and safety. And I just saw a big gap there in knowledge. And it's not like I want to, like, displace somebody. I just want to add my knowledge to this board.
Did you ever run for city council before?
No,
No. Oh, this is your first time.
this is my first time in politics in general. I mean,
How's
I've
it
got to
going?
deal with politics in the fire service, but I've never run for an office.
Let's see. Okay, before I let you go, what else should we talk about? I mean, that was big right there. Anything else? What other reasons are you running for city council?
I mean, I'm big on our downtown vitality. I know our businesses are struggling, and for a multitude of reasons. There's a huge change in human behavior after COVID, where people are staying in, not going downtown, ordering food in. Um, I would love to really create the Downtown Development Authority
Mhm.
and help these businesses thrive. Our sales and use taxes are flat.
One of the things that I hear constantly from people is, I won't go downtown anymore. It's safe. I won't let my teenage girls walk on the bike path. I won't let them go to the library. I won't let them go to the mall because there are junkies there. They get attacked. It's dangerous. The police aren't doing their job. I hear that all like 9 out of 10 times. What's your response to that?
I hear it, I see it, and I feel it. I went to Penfield Tate Building to do my petition to need 20 signatures, and I got there early. And I mean, not only were there open containers and underwear hanging from trees, but open meth smoking, and it's intimidating. It's intimidating to families.
Why, why don't the police clean this up? I know we had that whole thing of reimagining police, defund the police, don't bother anybody, but why can't the cops get down there right now and clean all of that up? What's the stoppage? What's stopping
It's a
them?
really good
I know.
question, and I don't know 100% where it's coming from. But I will say this, that I do think there needs to be stricter enforcement, because I want to go down there with my son and hang out like I used to do and not be
Yeah.
worried about needles, or somebody literally, like happened to me about a
How
month ago,
is
blowing
what
meth
is
in my
that?
face.
Is this city council and their policies or what? Is that what
I
this is?
it's it's not their policies,
Yeah,
it's how they're voting on.
I
Well,
see.
yeah, it's how they're voting on policies. It's how they're directing the police, and it's not necessarily just the city council.
Yeah.
It's city council, it's staff, it's our city manager, it's our attorney.
I
All
watched the
has to
city
work
council
in.
meeting where they had the old chief up there, and everybody who spoke just lambasted them. Not one person said, "Oh, you're doing a great job. It's so safe downtown." Every single one of them said, "What is wrong with you?" But they kept going on with this reimagining police, and I read all of that, and I thought, "Oh my God, like, what happened? Are you people like on drugs?" I mean,
Well,
that
I
was my
think
reaction.
to my, as I was saying, like you've got all these different stakeholders in the game, and
Yeah.
they're all trying to do good work and do the right thing. They just have different ideologies. But I think even more than that, there's some siloing that goes on where people are focused on their little piece of the pie versus seeing
Mhm.
the big picture. And I'll give you an example. I did a ride along about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago with the
Yeah.
homeless outreach team,
Mhm.
and they were incredible.
Who
We
just got fired, incidentally.
say that
They
again.
they just got fired. They defunded the outreach team.
Yeah.
The two people. It's like, well, that was a smart move, but go ahead.
Yeah, Ross and Officer Steinman. But they knew every single person's name in Central Park. They knew what their drug preference was, or if they had a mental illness, what their nicknames were.
Mhm.
We drove a gentleman who was unhoused to Lafayette for medical care, drove him back. Like it was as empathetic as you could ever hope for.
Mhm.
Flash forward to about 4 weeks later, and there's a gentleman, Victor King, who was formerly unhoused, and now he
Mhm.
works for the city, and he was training the ambassadors, the downtown ambassadors,
Okay.
on how to engage with the unhoused population. And Officer Steinman was there as well. And at the end, Officer Steinman held up his phone and he said, "We made a little app here. So we've got everybody's names and all of the things, information." And the other gentleman, who is one of the ambassadors, said, "Oh, we've got an app for that." And they're like, "Can I see that?" These two people literally worked right next to each other every single day, and there's no communication between that. So that's something that I see from, and I
Mhm.
would bring that from the fire service, like more of a centralized database, maybe covered by a HIPAA umbrella to protect them, to like help with coordinated entry, not
One of
compete for funds and services.
one of the problems, I 30 years ago, I did a piece with Step 13 in Denver, which is a homeless shelter that won a Points of Light, and their whole principle is they have 200 or 300 men there, and is um, you have to be sober to stay there. They have drug testing, alcohol testing. You have to get a job or be looking for work. You have to go to meetings, AA meetings, and other meetings regularly, and the darn place works. I've been trying to get Boulder to do something like that. I know we have a wet shelter, but we need one. And we just closed the tribe, but that was $1 million operation for a couple of years for 11 people. And they all came from, they weren't like our street people, they came from prison. So I'm like, well, okay, that's another one of those things. And it was federally funded. And then we just closed the youth shelter, and then people complained about that too, because they were saying, well, the kids were using, but you have to have drug testing and alcohol testing and a shelter to help people recover, or it'll never, ever work. And the Boulder homeless shelter is a clear example of that. That is, people cycle in and out. And I mean, I've mentored lots of people. I've let people stay here I have a heated garage, stay here as long as they've been sober. But and I've sponsored a lot of people that were out there. But at the shelter, that kind of a shelter continually enables people to use and drink on the streets. They eventually die there. Those 13 people or 15 people that we have a memorial for every January, they all died drinking and taking drugs. None of them, they say, oh, they died from exposure. I'm like, no, they died from alcoholism. Your
I
thoughts on that?
I met with a woman whose husband fell to alcoholism, and he
Mhm.
was a very successful builder. Um,
Yeah.
they wound up getting divorced. He was on the street. He couldn't kick the habit.
Yeah.
Um, he would go to Central Park every Tuesday. He would get all the clothes and the food. He would promptly take the clothes to Plato's Closet. He would sell them. He would
Yeah.
buy more alcohol. And he literally did that until the day he died on the streets.
Happens all the time in Boulder.
It
And
does.
it's been happening since 1971.
I know.
It has not changed. So somebody is going to have to come in there with a real, we have to invite somebody like Step Denver up here to run and operate a shelter. Also, it doesn't cost the taxpayer a dime. They're self-supporting.
Well, there are a couple of like pieces of low-hanging fruit that I see. You move those services from Central Park and you move them up to the shelter where they can be engaged with somebody that can like help them, make it a little bit less convenient for them so
Mhm.
that maybe some of the people that aren't locals here move on. And that's the other thing, like, the clutch report identified this, but I think it just makes sense. A lot of people have known this before the clutch report. Um, like, let's focus on the people that have lived here for a long time or experienced homeless here first, which is about 20%.
I
And
mean,
then,
who sets the homeless up in Central Park where citizens of Boulder would like to go? They don't go there anymore.
no, I mean, they're taking over the public spaces that, you know, my family used to go down there all the time and hang out. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying it's gotten better since COVID. I
Mhm.
mean, for sure. And I think Chief Redfern's doing a great job for what he's, allowed to do. But I think there's a lot more than we can do. And usually it's not the city that is, doing this. We need to be with the county. We need to partner with the state. I went to the clutch report at the Chamber of Commerce. And again, back to my point about siloing, I just saw like different organizations from, the hospitals to the
Mhm.
homeless shelters to the nonprofits, like get snippy with each other. Like this needs to be
I
coordinated.
wish I was there. No, but listen to me. The they call it the homeless industrial complex because there's so many millions of dollars paid to homeless service. Says people that have their MSWs and run these things and work in them, they are protecting their paycheck. And that's been going on. It's been going on for years. The if we suddenly solve the problem and everybody got off the street, they would all be off out of jobs. Now, I'm not being completely cynical with this, but the problem is someone with an MSW that works with the homeless population is no match against a homeless drug addict or alcoholic who has a doctorate's degree in streetology. They just manipulate them constantly. I talk to these people. They laugh at them. It and they do it under the influence. So they're insane from the drinking and the drugs, and they have this cunning and manipulation going on because the drugs and the alcohol are making them do it. And then, nobody's talking about that. They don't want to, they say, well, Jen, it's mental illness. I'm like, no, it's drugs and alcohol. You take care of that problem first. Housing first. I sponsor guys that are in housing first, and you know what they do when they get to housing first? They keep using and drinking and invite all of their addict friends over until everybody complains so much the cops come there enough times and then they're evicted and they're back on the street living
And the
under a
cycle
table.
starts again. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, there's human beings are complicated. I had a cousin that suffered from schizophrenia
yeah.
and she was homeless
Mm-hmm.
and she would bounce from city to city. Um, and she would get a job here and there, but she was mostly homeless and she
Mm-hmm.
chose to be homeless. Like
Mm-hmm.
she wasn't the kind of person that you could put into
Yeah.
permanent supportive housing and she would stay there, unfortunately.
I know
Um,
people like that in Boulder. I know
yeah,
I mean,
there's
like I have friends who were serious academics, pillars of society, and have for the past 20 years have been living on the streets of Boulder, hiding hiding from the homeless people. I talked to this, and it was like this was someone who was a colleague, was an editor. They just completely and they don't think that they're insane. They think they're fine. That's even
Well, I
that's
mean, to that point, sometimes they do something that gets them arrested. They're
yeah.
in jail for a few days, and every once in a while, they'll have a moment of clarity and they will want help. And that's the time when those services need to be available to them. But our jail is built so it's mostly one room, one cell per inmate, which is pretty inefficient. But that's because like they're taking in so many mental health.
I, I know. So here you go. Watch this. I know a lot of the clinicians that work at the jail, and I talk to them, and they, to a person, they tell me, well, we don't do any good here because we try to treat them, and when they leave, they all say they're going right back out on the street and get drugs and alcohol, and all get loaded. So the jail actually has a 0% in treating drug addiction and alcoholism, even though they're now opening, they have a new facility they're opening there, right?
Yeah, I don't think they can fund the staffing though
But
with the extra beds. I mean, if you talk to CJ, it's a mental health facility for the most part.
okay, and so they're trying to treat drugs too, but they won't. A lot of these places, like the district attorney's office, probation, the jail, they won't use fully built volunteer organizations that we have in Boulder. And I'm talking about Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, there's probably 4,000 members, sober members of AA. NA, Narcotics Anonymous, probably has 2,000, and they won't use them. I said, why don't you? Well, we have drug court. I said, you have drug court. You have one person a month go through drug court. In AA, there's 5,000 people going to meetings every week. There are hundreds of meetings. Why don't you use them as volunteers? Well, we couldn't do that. Why? No answer.
I mean, I may be really aspirational, but when I
Yeah,
look at this problem holistically, I
yeah,
mean, it's not just a city of Boulder problem, it's a national problem.
yep.
But let's just step out to the county as our partner. From what I understand, I mean, I've met with two of the commissioners,
Mm-hmm.
but for some reason, council and the commissioners don't always see eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
I would hope to be a catalyst to change that.
Yeah.
But again, like I picture this like a centralized hub where like AA, the homeless shelter, the housing, all
We
the
had it
nonprofits.
when Alex Hunter was the district attorney. He brought together, he called it the Alcohol Summit, and he brought together AANA, mental health partners, the ARC, the judges, probation, police, and sheriff, and we all met once a month. And then the Ramsey case hit, and that was the end of that. But
Mm.
for a while, we had kind of what you're talking about. Well, so I think if we elect you, Wallet, Wallich, Mark Wallish, and Jenny Robin, you guys seem to have the same kind of pragmatic thinking, practical, problem solving. Um,
Yeah,
point
I think so. I mean, you have to be pragmatic in the fire service. You
yeah.
have to be pragmatic when you're running your own business. And I mean, I'm 60 years old. I've paid lots of mortgages. I'm putting my son through college. I understand finance. I understand what mismanaged funds do. I
Mhm.
understand what lack of organization does or doesn't do, accountability,
Mhm.
mentorship, holding, just like
Mhm.
creating benchmarks for people. And I apply that to my everyday life. I would apply that to our business district. I would apply that to homelessness. I would apply that to housing.
You can apply that to the city if you get in there or when you get
Well,
in.
to the city, yes, to all of it. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Because we have people in the city council right now that are, I'm trying to think what their perspective is. It's a Somebody said it the other day. I can't. It's like there's something wrong. They can't seem to get things done. I don't think there's it.
I mean, one thing that I see, Jan, like as far as like permitting and things like that,
Mhm.
it's again so fractured, and it's also personality driven within a department that I've noticed, as far as getting something done and not getting something done. For example, a person that I know bought a house in Chautauqua. This was a few years ago. It was under 1,000 square feet. It was just a little tiny thing.
Mhm.
And they wanted to put another bathroom in it. It had one bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
And the city staff member came out and said, you can't do that for these reasons. And they were dumbfounded. They literally asked another staff member that had been there longer. And he said, of course, we can do this. We'll make it happen. So that's where I'm talking about like the leadership, the mentorship, and the accountability of whoever's overseeing any staff department. Like they have to know how to engage with the community. And that's another thing that I'm really like, I would push for is bringing staff back into the office, because working remotely, you don't
Are they,
have the same conversation and
they're
connection.
working remotely. The staff is working remotely from City Hall.
They are supposed to come in 2 days a week.
You're kidding me.
No,
Well, I thought that would come to an end. Do they get a full paycheck or a half paycheck?
no, they get a full paycheck.
Oh, no, they should have we changed that rule. Okay, if you work from home, we'll pay you half. If you
I
come
mean,
in,
and the other thing, you bring in staff, they're in the city, they're going to the restaurants, they're buying things. I mean, that's
I didn't
another,
realize that they're working from home.
they're only mandated to come in 2 days a week.
That is